Where else has what we have? I mean, I would seriously want to have a spot downtown just to do laps, right? From Comerica Park to Ford Field to LCA. Envision in 2, 3, 4 years, if all these teams are good, is this not the epitome of what you would want your sports city to be?
Is Detroit a tier 1 sports market? And I think that depends on how you interpret the question. I think it's a lot like MVP voting, because I've always said that about MVP voting. To me, the MVP is the best player in the league. Mm-hmm. If you had a fantasy draft and I could take one, that's who my MVP is. Is Detroit a tier 1 sports market, a top 5 sport, however you want to interpret that?
Here's the thing. All 4 major sports now are within a stone's throw from each other, downtown in your city and stuff like this. So if you're taking away the talent of your teams and where they sit in the standings and going specifically by, do you cover 4 major sports and are they accessible in your city? Well, you're a top 10 team. I mean, I'm not even going to rank it. I'm just going, you got everything you need. You are the New Yorks. You know, even like, and Boston's a phenomenal sports town, but, you know, their football's in Foxborough and stuff like this. You got LA's spread all over. You know, New York's one of the biggest one. But if you look, the question to me when you brought this up is, think about it. If your sports team, I'm going to flip this to you to answer the part B of the question. If you were at the top of your major sports in this city, would this not be the greatest sports city? If all 4 teams were humming, and just say that they were all playoff caliber teams, not just playoff, but conference finals.
Because we were in the 90s.
Right?
In the 90s,
but we
were.
weren't as big of a sports because the Pistons were out in Auburn Hills. The Silverdome, everything was spread out, even though you were under Detroit sports. What I'm saying, demographically, with Ford Field, LCA, and Comerica Park, with all within not even walking distance, right? The fat boys can stumble there, drunk between everything. What I'm saying is what I envision in 2, 3, 4 years, if all these teams are good, is this not the epitome of what you would want your sports city to be? Doing laps downtown, can you imagine, we got the draft coming, but if that district ever got done, I mean, I would seriously want to have a spot, live downtown, just to do laps, right? From Comerica Park to Ford Field to LCA. So my question is, do I think it is? Yes, I think we're a top 10 sports city, but I think we have the ability to be the best just because of locale and everything if you're good. Where else has what we have?
And I would say, and look, people are asking for definitions. And again, I kind of leave that up to you. That always sparks for a better debate.
You can't put like a definition.
We're not talent-wise.
You got to have all 4 teams.
Talent-wise, we're not. Talent-wise, we are absolutely not even close, right? But what we are set up for, where are your stadiums, right? Your accessibility. Where would you? My question is, where would you? What other city has a setup like ours that can be that way? We've experienced in the 90s what it was like to have the teams to be the tier, but we were spread out, right? I'm just saying, like, looking forward, like, this is where you want to be.
Dollar for dollar, I mean, if you look at the 90s, Detroit was just as good as anybody else. I mean, you had the Pistons win a title. You had the Wings win a couple titles. Mm-hmm. You had the Lions that were in a conference championship game.
Am I wrong to say, is anything like, I know that Chicago has the state, but in the proximity of what we have downtown?
Well, I don't think, because like you look at New York and Chicago and LA, it's just they're such massive cities. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think logistically, like, you couldn't pull that off. You know what I'm saying? And that's a whole nother discussion.
I don't care the why, Neal.
Yeah.
Right? The why is irrelevant. I'm just asking a question. Is it not set up to what it was to be? Like, you're going to want to be, man, I'm thinking of sitting here like 2, 3, 4 years going, we got the best city because I can walk from here to here to here. I know the other cities are bigger and not set up that way, but I'm saying...
Well, I would say this, too, and this has always been a big problem that I've had. See, these other cities, too, like you can just, get on a train
they have
and go to a different part of the city. And it's really wild. The train pulls up and you get off and you're there. And then when you're done, like you get back on the train and then the train takes you back to wherever it was you came from. It's wild.
See, I think a big part of the whole Tier 1 situation is cities that are able to host multiple sports franchises in the same sport and they still thrive. Like, obviously, New York, because it's so big, they can do the Yankees and the Mets. They can do the Giants and the
But you're talking about like 15 million people in and around there.
Same with LA. They can, Clippers, Lakers. They can do all that kind of Angels, Dodgers. And these teams are in the same city, but
Bay
all
Area,
still equally thriving. And so I think that's really what sets it apart. And Boston is like the outlier because they've just been title town for so long. They have so many championships with the Bruins and the Red Sox and the Patriots, obviously, and the Celtics. So it's hard not to put them in there because they've had so
Tier
dominant.
1 setup facility-wise. Your Tier 5 talent-wise.
Yeah.
Right? No. When you bring it, but as the teams get better, I mean, I know what's going to happen down there because I've seen it with the parades and stuff like this. But as the teams get good, people will come down. You mentioned we got the Q line. Don't mention that.
Oh, people are talking about the People Mover too.
Oh, it's back, free this month.
Is it back?
Or
It's still going.
It's free this month.
It's back
or
up and going.
I believe.
I went to go use it opening day, and like it wasn't running.
Right, but that's the biggest thing down here. But what I'm saying is that, like, to be able to walk through everything, now you need talent. We just haven't had the talent here in 10 years.
I've always said, too, I think Detroit as a sports city gets sold way short because there are 2 Division I universities, too, that everybody backs. In Michigan and Michigan State. That's kind of a part of that metro area where they'll put 100,000 in Michigan Stadium or 70,000 in Spartan Stadium on a weekend. Mm-hmm. And then that next day, Ford Field will be sold out.
Yeah, and it's definitely, we look at the history of Detroit, too, sports, Detroit athletes, like we've been blessed. A lot of teams... A lot of cities can't say they've had arguably the best wide receiver and running back of all time, arguably the best hockey player of all time, the best defensive hockey player of all time. Like, it's tough. Like, when you can say you have Gordie Howe, Nick Lidstrom, Calvin Johnson, and Barry Sanders all from the same city, there's not a lot of teams or cities that can say they have that caliber of again, Miguel Cabrera, the list can keep going on. Justin Verlander, Ty Cobb, different guys like that. It's important. That plays a factor for sure.
Verlander in that list.
What's that?
You threw Verlander in that list.
Verlander's one of the best pitchers of our generation, of my generation. Hands down.
For the Astros? I agree.
What did I say? I said you threw him on that list.
He definitely
That
doesn't.
was all I said, is you threw him on that list that he doesn't belong to be
He
on.
definitely doesn't.
I'm not arguing with you of your generation pitchers. I'm arguing with you of the list you put him on.
Yeah, he's definitely not up there with that is disrespectful for Gordy and Nick and
Thank you.
and Barry and Calvin and
You know what? Sometimes
and Miggy.
and Miggy.
when I go to Lauderdale, they have a train that,
When I go to Lauderdale,
like Lauderdale, Miami.
I know.
They have a
Just
train
said
that
it.
goes from West Palm Beach to the cruise ports, all the way down to Miami to the airport everywhere.
How far is that?
Oh, it's like almost a 2-hour drive from Miami, probably longer than a 2-hour drive from Miami to West Palm Beach. Like the Tri-Rail, you can, and when I go to see my buddy and I have to go to the airport, it's $5 to jump on the train and it drops me off at the airport. From it's a 30-minute drive to the airport from where I stay. I get on the train and I'm there for $5. Like that's and yes, and I know Mr. Privy says, Neal, the city's working on a new train station development designed to accomplish better logistics for travel. FJ 1967. You're right, Neal. In Denver, you can take the train from the suburbs right to the Broncos Stadium. Could you imagine that?
That would be so sick.
If you could just be at home and take a short Uber ride to the station and get on a train and go to the Lions game and take the train back home.
I mean, I only have a 15-minute drive downtown from my house, but if I could just walk over to Van Dyke and hop on a train that drops me off at LCA. That would be so sweet.
Well, it'd be like meeting right here. We're the headquarters at Woodward and Maple or whatever. It's like walking in here and then there's like a GO train.
And AC says it best. We need infrastructure. Yes, we do, my friend. And a bunch of our listeners that live in different places. Born Cool says, is Neal humble bragging again? No, I was just telling you about the places that have mass transit. It's a weird concept. I get it that we don't understand it, but that's what it is.